Women attained the right to vote in 1920. Is the battle done? Many leaders thought it wasn't. One such leader is Alice Paul, who was a young suffragist. She was involved in the Woman's Party, and she felt that although we now have the right to vote, unless we have equality under the law, regardless of sex, our right to vote is really limited. So she penned very quickly the Equal Rights Amendment verbiage. And in 1923, it was introduced into Congress. So this is directly related to the suffrage movement. Now, it languished in Congress for 49 years, but it was the prescience of Alice Paul knowing that going forward, this is something that one must address. We must have equality under the law, regardless of sex, grounded in our Constitution for it to have a lasting effect. As one often sees, when you're looking at a territory, a state that's not as organized as many of the East Coast states, obviously emanating from our first 13 colonies, you're going to Western territories that are more loosely organized. So for example, in Nevada, women achieved the right to vote in 1914, 6 years ahead of the national 19th Amendment. Again, the Utah Territory, 1870. So does this make sense? Early in the Mormon Church, women had more property rights, more rights for business ownership, equity in divorce law, that later, as communities became more solidified and organized, these rights would wane. But initially, especially in the Western states, women had lots of rights. So leaders like Ann Martin, who courageously canvassed Nevada before we had our infrastructure of roads, lowering herself down into mines to talk to miners about women's suffrage and why women should have the right to vote. They really took quite a leap of faith. They really they had no recourse. Once they took this step, once they started advocating for this change, they had no guarantee that they could go back to a comfortable life as they had known it before, or be sure that traditional life as they had known it would still be waiting for them. They're trying to effect change, and there was risk involved in that, but they took the risk anyway, and we are the beneficiaries of it. If we don't know the history of what's happened before us, we are doomed to repeat it. So as someone who teaches at the college level, I have young women in my classes who haven't heard of any of this, who have the notion that we have equality in our society. We don't have special challenges as young women, but they don't have the memory of the battles that had gone on just a few decades prior to give them the equity that they enjoy today. So it's important to know our history and to know how quickly equity can be lost if you're not aware of the need to maintain it.